keep in touch with them. The next source or niche of farming is demographic farming. This could be a number of things, from hobbies, you could have tennis, golf, or even your Harley motorcycle. I was doing some research on this demographic farming a while back, and I tried to find it for this webinar, but I couldn't find it. There is a lady out west in the western United States off of I-94 who has a full-size billboard of her sitting on a Harley Mac motorcycle. And in the article, she wrote this article and had this photograph in. When she wrote the article, she said that at the beginning, when I first pulled the billboard up, I felt a little foolish about it, and all the other realtors were laughing at me and thinking this is the stupidest thing they'd ever seen. That first year, she closed $20 million in sales, and she said better than 50% of it was from that billboard. Another form of demographic farming could be doctors, attorneys, and other professionals. Also, you could go after those households with earnings of over $150,000, or CEO presidents of companies. You could go after IT professionals, small and large business owners. Now the question is, where do you find all these people? And it's very easy. Go into Google and put in list brokers, and you'll pull up a dozen companies that will provide you with these lists. Now they will charge you for those, but you can get thousands of people on some of these lists in your own local market area. So these are the people, depending upon what you really feel comfortable with, that you want to farm demographically. And then another one that you could do just on the computer in your office or even at home is to go into the tax assessor's office and search for homes that are $500,000 or more, or $1 million or more, or whatever your comfort zone is. Absentee owners, 10 years and obscure. There was a period when I was actively selling between 1978 and 1983 for 5 years that I never once got less than 2 listings per month, and 1 month I got 10, and it was from this source, absentee owners. Now, first of all, when you're looking in the public records in most states, you'll look in and you'll see, if it's an absentee owner, 2 addresses. One address is called the site address, S-I-T-E, and that's the place where the property is located. The other is called the mailing address, and the mailing address is, of course, where the tax bill is mailed. What you're looking for, and what I mean here by obscure, is that you want addresses that are out of your state, mailing addresses, out of your state, and literally the further away, the better. You'll see why in just a moment. The next thing you want to find in our public records here in Florida is called the transfer date. But basically what it means is the date of the last sale. And you want those to be more than 10 years old. So the house hasn't sold in the last 10 years. And the reason for this is that it allows for appreciation of the property. Now, when I first developed this, it was back, as I said, in the late 70s and early 80s when I was doing it. But I did it based on this thought process. Let's suppose that somebody bought a property in 1970, and they paid $50,000 for the property. Now, in 1970, we were in somewhat of a very good market. And as the 70s started to progress, something happened, and that is that interest rates started to skyrocket. And towards the latter part of the 70s and into the early 80s, the interest rates in some states topped out at over 20%. In Florida, we had a usury law that was 18%. But in 1975, something unique happened in Florida. It was almost as though the money, the mortgage money, was sucked out of the state of Florida and went to other states where there were no usury laws that were at 12%. Because in 1975, the interest rates went above 12%. And so all the money left Florida and went to other states where usuries were higher than 12. So this person that bought the house in 1970, in 1975, is transferred to their parent organization, let's say out in Ogden, Utah. And they get this tremendous promotion with double their salary, triple their salary, and they realize that the market is so depressed in 1975 that they really don't need to sell the property because of the promotion. So let's just hold on to it. Let's hold it as an investment. Maybe we'll move back to Florida and retire here. And so they do. And now they've been renting that for all of these years. It's now 39 years after they bought it. If they paid $50,000 for it, and I'm using Florida values here, but if they paid $50,000 for it in 1970, in today, 2009, that property is probably worth somewhere between $600,000 to $700,000, maybe even $800,000. In some areas, it could be worth a couple of $1 million. But in most cases, it's going to be worth well over $600,000. They receive from you a letter indicating that you noted they bought their property in 1970, and you don't need to say what they paid for it. But assuming that you're still holding this as an investment, I've submitted to you a complete competitive market analysis showing the value of your property to be somewhere between $560,000 and $640,000. With the amount of real estate and buyers that are in the market today, you might want to consider in cashing in on this investment. Now, with that, you send a copy of your listing agreement already filled out for them to sign, the CMA that I just talked about, and that letter. Now, all three of those pieces of mail are going to take 2 stamps, not 1. Plus, you send a self-addressed envelope back to you. Now, here's the reason why this works. Have you ever received, excuse me, have you ever received in mail at home a piece of mail that, junk mail that you get repeatedly, month after month after month after month? And obviously you do what everybody else does, and that is just toss it in the trash. But now jump ahead a year from now, 2 years from now, and all of a sudden you need the service or product that's offered in that mail out. More than likely you're going to turn to that company or that person. Well, the same thing is true here. When I say I was receiving 2 listings per month, and 1 month I got 10, it didn't happen overnight. I was doing the entire database of Dade County, Florida, and I was doing it, sending these letters out, an average of probably 3 to 4 times per year. They were getting the same letter. And it might be a year later, 6 months later, 2 years later, that they finally decide, what are we sitting on all this for? Let's go ahead and cash in. Now, this is nothing more, nothing less than target marketing. And target marketing historically will produce results to the tune of about 1%. That's all. So if you say to yourself, I'll send out 100 letters and I'll get a listing, you won't get a listing. I'll send out 1,000, you won't get a listing. Send out 10,000, you might. But, and I don't know when it happened, but I'm absolutely certain it did not happen in the first mailing of the database of Dade County. It probably happened in the second, third, even the 4th mailing. But once I got that first listing, it was almost as though the dam broke. From that point forward, I never stopped getting listings for 5 years. And then I was transferred by the company up to Broward County, and I didn't repeat the process. Now, what I created to do this was a database that consisted of all these absentee owners, and this is before computers. It took me about 3 months of probably 5 to 10 hours per week to develop that database. With your computer, you can develop the same database in 5 minutes on the computer in your office, just researching the public records. And then the last source is other real estate professionals that I mentioned before. How many of you have ever received a thank you card from another realtor, another broker, thanking you for showing their property? You should always send thank you cards out when someone shows your property. And then another question. How many of you have ever received a call from the other broker telling you what their buyer thought about the property? Good, bad, or indifferent? What were their thoughts? Now, put yourself for just a moment in the position of a seller of a home. You know that your home is being shown this afternoon by ABC Realty. Now, it's listed with you. ABC Realty is another company. That owner is going to want to know exactly what that buyer thought. What's going on? And every minute after 2 o'clock, they're going to be wondering why you're not calling them. Well, most of the time, you're not calling them because you don't have anything to say because the other broker didn't call you. So reverse that. Immediately after showings, call the listing agent and let them know. I guarantee you, by doing these 2 things, it's going to come back to you tenfold. What I like to impress upon the associates that go through the training that I give is that this is a non-profession in the eyes of the public. Now, there are professionals within real estate. Don't misunderstand. There are thousands of professionals, but there are tens, if not hundreds of thousands of non-professionals. What I try to impress upon the associates is that they need to become a professional in a non-profession. And in every community out there, every single community there is going to be a group of top people, top realtors that are the true professionals, and they are the ones that are garnering probably 80, even in some cases 90% of all of the business. What you're striving to do is to break into that group. And once you do break into that group, they will literally sustain your success. But if you ever violate that trust, they'll literally put you out of business. Another way to work with the other professionals in your industry is to network with them. Go to the NAR and state conventions, also any board functions that you have. And then work your new listings. When you take a listing, by this I don't mean just notifying the people in the neighborhood. I'm talking about the other brokers that also have listings in the neighborhood. Don't mail it to them. Go to their office. And don't just give it to the secretary or the admin in the front or the receptionist. Go into the bullpen and meet those salespeople and talk to them and tell them about this new listing that you just received. Take a moment and read that. An absolute fact. You cannot have a truly successful career without your fellow realtors' support. When I was actively selling, my mantra, if you will, that I had or wanted to have follow me was that I would do anything I had to do to help the other broker make the sale. And that in some cases included giving up a commission. The most important thing to me was my reputation, and it should be the most important thing to you. And once the other brokers recognize that in you, that you are willing to work with them, and that you want to cooperate with them, they're going to show your listings before they show anybody else's. Final thought on farming, and that is whatever farming method you choose or how you choose to do it, always remember that farming is nothing more than prospecting. It's keeping in touch with everybody you meet. Remember at the very beginning I said the people in your farm area and your spheres of influence should never, ever be allowed to escape. You now are their realtor for life.